Hey everyone, GW Xavier with More Memories. Thanks for joining. Today I'm going to demo a border that I had created for my Europe trip. And it was when we were traveling in Toledo and Granada. And it kind of worked out really, really nicely. And then I thought this would also work probably for, a Midwest town, for folks that, live or perhaps have visited the Western USA. So I'm just going to demo that. And you can see we have a lot that we're going to work with today, but it's actually going to be relatively simple. And here's just the example that I made for my page. And you can see I used the Rolling Hills Border Maker cartridge, the Charming Village Border Maker punch, the Cacti Border Maker punch, and the Square Link Chain BMC as well. In the background, the river, I used the laser cut borders from the Coastal Shores collection that's retired now, but it just kind of matched with the color scheme I was going with, and I used a decorative blade of wave to give more of that wave feel back there. And then I inked with some green and some brown inks just for some shading. And on this particular border, each of these elements is separate, and I used some foam squares to give a little pop here and there. But the technique I'm going to show you today is actually just going to use one whole strip of the beige cardstock, where we're going to punch on both ends, score it, fold it over, and then we'll add all of our elements along with our inking. So here's the one half of the border, or here's what we'll make today. And we're going to use the Rolling Hills Border Maker cartridge. We're going to use the Cacti punch, Charming Village punch, and the River Waves punch. I'm using beige cardstock. I'm using Lagoon Shimmer paper and Dark Sea Green cardstock. And then I have bronze, which is also a retired color, but you could certainly swap it out for anything else that you like at the bottom. I just didn't get that part punched out yet, but it'll go down there. Additionally, we're going to be using our repo tape. If you want to have regular tape handy, you can certainly have that. We're going to use our micro tip scissors, 12-inch trimmer, border maker system, the craft mat for our inks, and with our brushes. So let's just get a little space going here to work from. These to the side, and you, and you can go over here, and here. All right. So I'm first going to start off with the beige cardstock. And this is a scrap piece. You know, if you have a scrap piece big enough, you're going to need 4¼ inches of the beige cardstock. So we're just going to measure in here at 4 and 4¼ line up. Fantastic. Okay. I'm going to set my trimmer aside. I'm going to grab my border maker system, and I'm going to use the Rolling Hills. If you don't have Rolling Hills, you could substitute with a tree line. You could substitute, if you've got the decorative trimmer, you could use one of the swell cuts to give the hill feeling. And then if you have like some stickers, you could use those for trees if you wanted trees on the hills. Or you could do no trees and you get more of a maybe canyon feel in the background with the village. So lots of options. I liked the rolling hills because it gives that impression of the trees in a simple way. That's also just kind of nice as well. And we've got that cut out. Fantastic. We can put our BMS to the side a little bit, just for some extra room. So now I'm going to get my cacti punch and I'm going to get my Charming Village punch out here. So I'm going to use these two along the bottom, and the idea is that they're going to flip up. So I'm actually going to flip my paper this way, just upside down. Unlock my punches here. So it depends on kind of a little bit of where you want to start, how you want to start. You can see here, I started my cactus punch just with a couple of cacti on the edge. And then I went along, rotating out the pattern of Charming Village, cacti, Charming Village, cacti, Charming Village. And then I snipped out the evergreen tree from the Charming Village. And then I did have to even out the landscape a little bit. And what I mean by that is you'll see when we punch these together, we're going to end up, this is a different punch, but you can see, you're going to end up with a little bit to trim off, and that's okay. I'll show you that part. If you don't have the Charming Village border maker punch, because it was an exclusive promo a couple Christmases back for Black Friday, it had a brief bring back. It can be a little difficult to find. You could swap out with Home Sweet Home BMC if you have it, but as you can see, if you just punch straight ahead, you're gonna have an offset landscape there. That's gonna be really tough to blend together unless you want dips and valleys with that look. So what you would have to really do, which I tend not to really do this because it's a little more work, it's a little more measuring. I'm just not that type of person. And so what I will tend to do, or what you could do, is trim about 1/4 inch of the top off to about around 2 1/4 down to get your Home Sweet Home punched, which would line up better with the cacti. But again, it's a little more work and a little more fussing and a little bit more of what we would have to, try to figure out a bit. And so that's why I don't think this is a great method. But if I had to use it, I could. But that was just a side note. All right, so I'm actually going to start off, I think, on this end, because you could make this a 2-page border. So what I'm probably going to do, I'm just thinking in line of continuing that a bit, might be might start here with the houses. So you can see I'm not going to follow necessarily these black marks, because I'm not going to do the full border. I'm just wanting some of the shapes right now on the edge. So I'm just going to bring in the paper to where I've got the house cover, the 2 houses, and I'm going to punch that. Then I'm going to come in with my cactus punch. I'm going to find where that edge of the paper was, line that up, punch. Now I'm going to rotate back into my Charming Village. I'm going to find where the edge of the paper of the last punch was, line that up, punch. And then I'm just going to keep rotating through. Now with this part, right, I got this little end piece. I could come in and I could do, right, I could do these last two on the end here. If I wanted the other two, I could just flip that around and get those two. I think that might be what I want to do. All right. All right, clean off our space a little here. No piece there. Okay, so now I've got my rolling hills on the one end. I want, right, this to be upside down because I'm going to score it and then we're going to flip it up and then it will look proper. Okay. Next piece we're going to do is some inking. So, get our Creative Memories craft mat out. Put that down. All right. Get my inks together here real quick. Fantastic. All right. So here's the one piece to just remember. We're going to ink the tree line on the one end, on the right, on the right side up end here. And then we're going to flip it and ink the other side here. Okay. But first, let's do our trimming of our landscape, because you can see here, it doesn't perfectly line up. That's okay. That's where our micro tip scissors come in, and they work wonderfully to just get in there. I'm just eyeballing this. I'm just gonna make a little snip there. I'm gonna get in here. And I'm just gonna cut out these pieces that right, so now you can see I'm getting a more even landscape happening. I don't want this evergreen tree in the mix. So I'm just gonna kind of cut in a little wavy pattern that kind of reminiscent of that landscape. I'm just gonna keep going about doing that real quick. There. Clean off my pieces here. Okay, now I'm ready to shade with my inks. So some of these inks are not available through Creative Memories. These ones, these square ones, I had just found at a craft store for one of those, they're in a bin of buy two, get one free or something. But I like how they work with this. And then of course we have the Rich Cocoa Memento and the Potter's Clay Memento that are available through Creative Memories and their brushes. So I'm going to start with the tree line up top here. You can't necessarily see it, but these are two slightly different shades of green. So I'm going to come in first with the lighter one. And these ones work well for this type of technique where I'm just going to gently press down to get the color on my tree line. This probably won't work too well with the mementos. These ink pads seem a little bit more drier and have a rougher kind of, I don't know if that's felt in there. They just have a little bit of a rougher type of pad to them. So again, and then I'm just going to do a little bit here in the hill part because I want a little green in there. I know there's some green out west, not too much, right? I'm going to come in with my darker green just for some extra highlights. Yeah, and so you just kind of look at what do you have, you know, as scrapbookers, paper crafters, card makers. It's kind of what we do, right? We look at what do I have, what's going to work, regardless if it's Creative Memories or another brand that we tend to want to use a lot of. What do we have that's going to work? Right. Cover my inks. All right. This looks like a brown, right, tan. It actually has a yellow hue to it. And so I like it in this particular one where I can use it to kind of shade some of the hill to give it more of an earthy, maybe canyon-like feel to it. People who live out west, feel free to disagree with me. It's okay. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to bring that shading down a bit because I don't want too much of this beige cardstock to come through everywhere. I just want little hues of it, so I can bring that down a bit. Okay. And so here we have that shading. Might be a little bit tough with the lighting to see the coloring, but there's enough green in there where if it's on a white page, you will be able to tell there's green and some yellow in there. Now I'm going to flip it over because I want to do the other part. I'm actually going to do my buildings first, and then I think I'll come in with my greens because it's using the brushes might be a little bit tougher in some of these spots. So first off, I'm going to use my rich cocoa. I'm going to get some of the ink down on my pad here. Grab my brush. And I'm just going to come in just outside, and I'm just going to start swirling my brush onto the houses and a little bit beyond. And that's the thing with shading. You can go as, I always say, go light first, because you can always go darker, but you can't go lighter once you've made it dark, okay? Yeah, maybe a little bit more in some spots. I kind of want to, don't forget my landscape line either. That's going to want some love. Okay. I'm going to use a little potter's clay to add a little extra tint in there, especially around the rooftops. Kind of try to give a little bit of that terracotta feeling and coloring to some of this, or some of these buildings, I should say. I can also take the ink pad and I can run it along the top of the roofs that I can get in there. just to add a little extra dimension to those pieces. And then I'm going to come in with my greens again, and I'm going to do my cacti. The same way I did the rolling hills, because I'm using these particular inks. So, and I'm just being a little careful of how close I get to the other houses. I don't necessarily want green on them. Grab my other green for some extra shading, some extra dimension in some spots. And again, it's up to your eye and what you like in terms of how dark you want to go with some pieces. Don't want to forget my line there. Gonna add a little extra to that landscape line. With this yellow. Might be a little hard to see on the camera with the lighting right now, but it's getting in there. And I can bring it down a bit. That's okay too. All right. I think I'm going to stop there with my inking. And I'm going to set this aside so that it can rest. These are quick drying, so I'm not going to say I'm going to let it dry because they're quick dry. It's been absorbed very well already. What I'm going to do is get my River Waves punch. And I've already pre-cut a strip in the Lagoon Shimmer. So I'm just going to get a quick strip out of the Dark Sea Green. So in this one, I am going to bring my paper to the black line because I do want the full border. And on this one, you'll notice some of the Creative Memories punches might have this little triangle notch mark that pops out as well in the punch. You can see it right here on the paper. You want to pay attention to that because for patterns that repeat like this, it's very tough on the wings to figure out where do I need to bring this paper to make my next punch. So that's what that little guide arrow is for. When we pull our paper through on the wing, we want to line up that arrow from the paper on the blue part of the wing, and the rest of it should line up as well. And that's how we know we are in the right spot to make our next punch. So then again, line up that arrow. And once in a while, I notice this will happen. It's still connected to the paper. That's fine. We're just going to trim it off. And then we'll just clean off the end here. their little cuts. Boom. All right. Next, here I want to grab my repo tape. I want to get a silicone mat. My border mat is somewhere. I just don't have it handy, so I'm just going to use the card mat, which will work fine. Now, you just decide which way you kind of want this to go, because this is a shadowing technique. So we're going to overlay them, but I'm going to make, see the holes? I want to cover those up with the other color. So I'm going to lay my lagoon on top of my dark sea green, and I'm going to make it so that I don't have any of the paper coming through. I could do it like that if I wanted. If I liked it the other way, right, I want the dark sea green on top and have the lagoon shimmer come through. I could do it that way too. So it's just more of a personal preference, whichever one you like for this particular project, go ahead with. But we're just going to get some repo tape on. And then I'm going to overlay. My lagoon, covering those spots. I'm a little off here. Figure that out in a second. That's why repo tape's helpful, because we can just go back in here, figure out what we need to do, and re-adhere. And it will work wonderfully. So I got my strip ready, my river strip here. Sorry, it just slipped on me a little bit, so I'm just fixing that real quick. Okay. Awesome. Now, I'm going to grab my trimmer, and I'm actually going to grab an extra scrap piece of paper that's at least 12 inches long. We'll use the dark sea green that we just had. I'm going to grab my 4 1/4 strip with my cutouts. I'm going to swap out my blade because I don't want to cut. I'm going to want to score. And so I want to get my scoring blade out. Pop that into the housing. All right. Now I want to score at 5/8 inches. And if you're like me, you really hate that number because you always have to look up, where is it? So an easy way to try to remember that is that 5/8 is the mark between 1/2 and 3/4. It's the longer mark here. You can see I'm pointing to it with my multi-purpose tool here. So how do we do that with our punch outs? How do I line this up, right, where I don't have a grid line for that mark? So one little tip you might want to think about: get a scrap piece of paper that's 12 inches, line it up to that mark, so 5/8 here. Yep. Okay. Bring in. You want to have the inked side of the village and the cacti up, facing up, because that's what we're going to flip. So just feed that through. as best you can. There we go. Oops, I'm getting stuck. There we go. And bring the tips of the tallest pieces to that paper, right? So the tip of this cactus, the tip of this building here, I just want to bring in those tips so that they are just slightly over the blue paper. I'm gonna bring it a little bit more. I should say my dark sea green paper. That's probably just about even there. And then I'm just going to score it. Hang on. Flip it over. Sorry, folks. It's Saturday morning. I need more coffee. Flip it over so that we don't have the you don't have the inked side of the village. You have just the beige uninked side. Now let's line back up to 5/8. Sorry, folks. See, I caught myself before I did it. It's always a win. Now, score. And for those new to the scoring blade, it'll give us this little line here. Put my trimmer to the side. And that's going to be my folding line. I like to take my multi-purpose tool and kind of gently guide along just to get the fold going a bit. But it should be relatively ready to bring up and over. Like so. Okay. Now I can get my river strip. And yeah, this is the back that I'm going to use. I'm going to use regular tape. You could use repo tape again if you wanted. That's fine. And I'm going to place it behind here, kind of where I think it's going to fit best, making sure that the landscape will cover the bottom part. I could put it all the way in. If I want a thinner river, I could put it all the way down to the fold. Right? I'd have a thinner river in the background. I might want mine to be a little bit higher. So I'm just going to go probably just above that mark. If you're doing a 2-pager, right, You might want it to align as best as possible, so that might be the mark that you go with adhering at. I don't know why I'm having such a problem putting this in today, but it's what it is. There we go. Here's my two borders that will go together. So lastly, right, if I wanted to add a little extra at the bottom, I can take my square link BMC, get my paper holder, just feed my paper in, and then punch along. I'm going to need 2 of these. So here's another nice little trick that you can see it's too short for the housing. So a common trick, if you're not familiar with this, is to actually use Post-its, which I had here, and now they are gone. Here we go. To use just Post-its, and you can use two or 3, right? You're just gonna slide it in just a bit here, just to extend it so that the magnetic strip can hold the paper, and then you can punch like normal. A little handy trick when you've got some scrap pieces that will work perfectly, but they don't fit into the paper housing for the BMC. You can use Post-its to hold the paper for you. And then you still have a small strip that you could use elsewhere. And then I'm gonna come in with my strip, and I'm just gonna eyeball where do I like it. I'm not gonna wanna have the beige overshadow it, so I'm probably gonna have it overhang a little bit, like that. So I'll probably use repo tape for that. There we go. Get my mat again. And I'm gonna repo tape along the top and into the middle part there. I'm not gonna do the full shape just because I'm gonna have a little overhang. So this might be good for a top border then, or if you don't want to use that, you just want it like this, you certainly could. That one more. And I'm probably just using a little more than I normally would with adhesive just because the just it's a little delicate here, and I just want it to stay. So then line up. Make sure that's relatively straight. Yep. And here we go. Voila, we have a double page border for a maybe Midwestern village, riverside village, right? A Spanish village, right? I don't know about Italy. I don't know if they've got cacti in Italy, but we could certainly swap out cactus with something else for sure. Maybe a different tree line would fit in there, but possibilities are a little bit endless there. And we can have a nice little enhancement for our pictures. So again, here's my original, and here's what we made today. So hope you liked it, hope you enjoyed it, hope you had fun, and consider shopping with me at Creative Memories. My Creative Memories website link is in the details below. You can also follow me on Facebook at Mohr Memories. That link is also in the details below, or you can always shop with your favorite advisor for any supplies that you're needing. So again, thanks for joining, and I hope you have a great day, and happy scrapping.